Let us understand here and now what it is to give our children the best possible educational service as they are growing up, learning to handle the stress of their teenage, learning to go out there into the world, learning new skills, acquiring new knowledge. Let us understand how perfect education can be imparted to any child or any human being for that matter. Now, in order to understand this, we'll have to understand how the brain essentially works, and all of us, even though we do not have a scientific understanding of this particular principle, we would have anecdotal understanding, meaning we would have understanding that stems from our own experience. Imagine the first time we started to learn a new skill, let's say drawing or painting, or let's imagine that time when we learnt the alphabet of the English language. Let us go back to that moment wherein we could not even write, and then slowly we started practicing. Slowly we practiced ABCD and started writing, and then we became experts, and then we were able to write faster. Then we were able to improve our handwriting, so on and so forth. Here, we would like to stress upon the knowledge and skill set acquiring method that the human body, which all of us are possessing, indulged into in order to understand something, gain knowledge, and to expound that skill set. Initially, when we are trying to learn something, there always is a period of trial and turmoil and turbulence, and there is always a wall or an obstacle that we face. Nobody is an inborn genius who knows each and every single thing as soon as they are born. Some people might be smarter, some people might be well equipped to handle or learn any skill set faster than others. But nobody knows everything when they are born. Most people don't know most things even when they die. It is but obvious that it is going to take some time to acquire skill sets. This is the so called learning curve. For some students and learners, this learning curve may be very steep. For some, it may be flat and things might be easier for them to learn. Each and every single student or child or any human being for that matter, when they learn and acquire a new skill set, the initial few days or few hours of practicing and learning that skill set are definitely going to be very, very difficult and challenging. That is but natural. We have to persist through those initial hours of trials and turbulations and the struggle. Only if we persist through them, we can acquire what we will now term as a state of flow, or a state of vibrance and exuberance and happiness and elation and self actualization in having learned that particular subject or skill. It is very important to be persistent through these initial number of hours or days of trying to learn something or acquire a new skill. Some subjects might be more difficult for some students than other subjects. It is very, very important that the student, the parents, and the teachers, the entire learning ecosystem that is present around the student, it is very important that they identify what subjects are easy for the student, what topics and chapters are easy for the student, and what are going to be relatively difficult. From amongst the difficult chapters, we have to prioritize the more important ones first and the less important ones later. Whenever we are doing any particular chapter, be it more important or less important, whenever we are practicing or trying to learn any given chapter, breaking it down into small chunks of bite-sized information really helps. So let us say if there were 30 pages in one chapter, then to start with, the student or the learner can only read 2 pages and try to understand those 2 pages. Herein comes a very important element, the element of interactivity while any particular skill is being taught and learnt. Ideally speaking, human beings have evolved in small tribes. So, how have human beings passed their knowledge on? Before the invention of papyrus or paper, wherein knowledge could be documented and hence streamlined and passed on to the next generation. Humans used to verbally communicate with each other. Let us say person A is teaching person B a certain particular subject. Let's assume that subject or a topic is quadratic equations from mathematics. Then person A would demonstrate what a quadratic equation is via some examples or via anecdotes, via relatable examples in their own surroundings. Would try to illustrate what the quadratic equations symbolizes and signifies, and where the quadratic equation can be used. Let's say, for example, if we throw an object, then under uniform gravitational force, the path of the object is going to be a parabola. Parabola also happens to be the trajectory described by the quadratic equation in general. The quadratic expression y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c is going to in general describe a parabola, assuming a, b, c are non-zero. Now, in this particular scenario, if we micro focus and analyze from a bird's eye view as to how exactly learning is happening, we will come to realize that first part of learning involves the communication of information from the teacher to the learner, from the authority figure to the student. So during this communication, the student pretty much has to just focus, concentrate, and understand what is being told to them. This part of communication is primarily a monologue or one-way communication, very similar to the type of communication I am currently having with you, the viewer of this video. After this monologue type of communication is over, then comes the role of the dialogue or interactivity while learning. Now, why is dialogue important? Because traditionally speaking, human brains, unlike computer brains, need to discuss in order to clarify the doubts that the human neurons or the brain might have. Also, let us mind one fact that different students are going to have different doubts in the same chapter or topic because of the previous understanding, experience, intellectual level, mathematical sophistication, logical reasoning, spatial analysis. Spatial means space-based 3D visualization based analysis, etc. Different brains have evolved differently to understand concepts in a different manner. Hence, it is but obvious that different students will get different doubts in the same concept or topic. When we know this to be the reality, it is very imperative that there is a discussion mode of communication available to the students to clarify the doubts that are their own individual specific doubts that a separate student may or may not get. We started this video by talking about the exact educational strategy or what it means to give perfect education to our children. The first part is a broadcast style of communication. The second part happens to be interactivity and doubt clarification. Now, the third segment is practice or revision and practice of the concepts that have been taught inside the classroom or while the student learned the concepts on their own. So by practice, what do we mean? We mean that the student rigorously revises whatever has been taught to them and practices it to a maximal extent. Let us say if we are talking in the context of a competitive entrance exam wherein MCQ questions are being asked, we would recommend that generally speaking, for every hour of teaching, the student has to undergo at least 2 to 3 hours of rigorous practice of the questions that are pertaining to the concepts that are taught. Sometimes the student may not be able to solve the questions immediately. In such scenarios, the student is supposed to undergo and go through some solved examples. After the student undergoes some solved examples and reads through some solved examples, then the student is supposed to practice. While practicing, the student will encounter various doubts and difficulties. Once that happens, the student has to mark down those doubts and difficulties and aggregate the doubts and difficulties in a chapter wise manner. Whenever chapter wise doubts and difficulties are aggregated, it is thenceforth very simple for any academic planning team, including the professor, the guardian, and the student themselves, who are working towards achieving the best academic outcome for the student, to enable the student to get the doubts clarified in a very systematic manner. Let me again repeat the importance of doubts in the learning process. Doubts are probably the fundamentally most important element of any learning process wherein knowledge is being acquired. And because, as we remarked earlier, different students are going to get different doubts in the same chapter, more or less, each student's doubts are very individual centric and individual specific. That's why, after the initial broadcast method of communication is over, it is very important that the student gets individualized and personalized attention, especially for interactivity while learning and also for clarifying the doubts that might arise as they are trying to solve and adapt and evolve in that particular chapter topic their own understanding and their own brain power. Thus, if those doubts are clarified in a very systematic manner, which is going to be possible only in individualized mode of learning or personal tuitions or personal tutoring mode of learning and teaching, then it is very difficult to stop the student from reaching their best possible potential of expertise in that particular chapter topic and hence the subject as well. Now, once most doubts have been clarified and we have covered most chapters in this manner, it is very important that the student or students undergo a lot of test practice. If there is a lot of time remaining, individualized chapter based tests also will help. If there is less time remaining, then we have to gallop towards completing the syllabus and onto full syllabus test practice. The student who solves maximum number of full syllabus tests is having the chance of reaching their fullest potential to the maximal degree. While solving the full syllabus test, it is very important that the doubts of the full syllabus test are again noted down appropriately. The mistakes or the shortcomings because of which the student was not able to solve the questions in the full syllabus test are to be noted down, and the mistakes have to be classified according to whether they are conceptual mistakes, whether they are practice based mistakes or execution based mistakes, or whether they are silly mistakes. Practice based mistakes also include situations wherein time was of the essence and the student could not get the time to solve a certain particular question or set of questions. It also includes memorization problems wherein everything was known to the student but a certain particular formula or a fact skipped the memory or was not on the forefront of their mind while solving that particular question. Or it also includes everything is fine but enough practice has not happened of those type of questions for the student to be very confident of solving those type of questions in the exam. When this exact analysis of conceptual mistakes, execution or practice based mistakes and silly mistakes is performed, we as the academic team supporting the student, including the student themselves, also will come to know about the following. We will come to know about the gaps of understanding, either because the student did not understand the concepts during the first time when the concepts were being taught, or because they forgot the concept at that point in time. So the gaps of understanding will be very easily highlighted. Let us imagine a scenario wherein we go to a hospital and therein the medical professional or the doctor is present. Without making any diagnosis, if some doctor generically prescribes a medicine, how absurd would that situation be? Similarly, when the student undergoes full syllabus test practice, without us understanding what type of mistakes the students are making, it would be very absurd for us to prescribe a certain particular medicine or a certain particular methodology of improving the types of mistakes that the student is making. If the student is making conceptual mistakes, revision of concepts are important. If the student is making practice-based mistakes, more and more practice is important. Within practice-based mistake, if factual remembrance or memorization mistakes are being made or shortcomings are being had, then in that case, we have to work upon memorizing these things to a greater and better extent. If the student is performing silly mistakes, in that case, we have to make sure that the student is well slept, well rested, in a state of flow, present to the moment, happy-go-lucky, not under stress or duress. If these things are well understood, then hardly anything can stop the student from performing to their fullest potential. Also understand that the human mind and the brain is very versatile and very potent. So given enough time, generally speaking, most students would be able to perform very, very well in the competitive entrance exam of their choice. However, time is the exact factor that is of essence. Meaning, extreme amount of time is not present in anybody's hands. Time is the limiting factor. So instead of squandering time in trying to slowly learn, it is very imperative that the syllabus has to be completed fast initially. While completing the syllabus very, very fast as humanly possible by the team of student, professor, academic counselors as well as the parents. By this academic team who is interested in the academic welfare of the student, if the syllabus is completed as fast as possible, even if the student understands a bit less compared to slow coverage of syllabus, mind you that even if the student covers the syllabus fast or slowly, eventually after the completion of the syllabus, the students are going to forget pretty much to the same extent. And hence, in order to increase expertise, we don't only want to be familiar with the syllabus, we want to be experts in it. And hence, in order to increase the expertise of the student in that particular arena or area of studies, the most important factor is revision and test practice. If initially the syllabus is not completed rapidly or fast enough, then in that case the student will get very little time and they will not have enough time to perform multiple cycles of revision and full syllabus test practice. Unless this happens, the marks of the student are not going to get elevated. This is very, very important to note. Now, we have outlined the entire academic process, that is the best possible educational service that can be delivered to a student. Initially comes learning, wherein the student learns from a teacher or a book or they invent theory on their own. So initially comes the learning part, wherein the student is mainly absorbing and gathering the information. To make this more efficient, video lectures can be used in this initial process of learning after the student is familiar and comfortable with the topic, chapter or syllabus. In our experience, we have seen that sometimes once the student becomes familiar with the particular chapter, then let us say because of video lectures being present, instead of 20 hours having to be taught by the faculty, only 2 to 3 hours needs to be taught by the faculty and remaining 17 hours the student can themselves gather from the video lectures. Video lectures are also very vitally important because they serve as an ever existing medium of revision for the student. So if the student goes through the initial track along with the reference video resources or video lectures, then in that case, whenever the student is going to forget that theory in the future, and they are going to forget the theory in the future because that is how the human brain and the neurons work. The neurons have to be fired again and again together in order for them to rewire and form a neural memory of understanding, or as we call it, analysis, which is analysis plus knowledge. For them to be able to form a neural knot of memory, it is imperative that the student forgets and then refires the neuron and rewires the neuron and learns again. This is how the human brain works. So when the student is going to forget, the video lectures are going to be a key learning resource. That's why video lectures and technology enhanced learning should never be discarded or dismissed or given lesser importance to. It is equally important compared to face-to-face interactivity. Once this initial part of somewhat broadcast style of communication or monologue style of communication is completed, then comes the dialogue based communication, wherein there is back and forth between a live professor and the students. Herein, the mistake of one teacher and many students should not be committed. One teacher can have maybe 2, 3, 4 students, and that's about it. Because if one teacher is catering to 30, 40, 50, hundreds of students, irrespective of what has been historically happening in the world, this is 2020, 2021 and beyond. We now have the internet. It is very possible to have online lectures wherein one teacher is catering to one student. Unless there is a dialogue established, please note that you as parents and guardians and you as students are doing disservice to the learning process. This will make things inefficient. Please note that you are not only paying money to the educational institutes or the teachers who are teaching you, you are also paying them with time. And time is of the essence when peak performance compared to your true best potential is concerned in any competitive entrance exams or anywhere in life in general. So figure out the time cost that you are paying in order to gain some knowledge. If there is no interactivity involved or less interactivity involved, then your specific doubts are not going to be clarified, and hence you will be stuck in feeling underconfident about that particular chapter or topic. After that comes the test phase and the doubt clarification and the revision phase, and after that comes the full syllabus test practice. So if we were to outline again, initially it's rapid completion of the syllabus, more or less in a monologue format. Then comes solving and doubts being asked by the students and interactively being understood by the faculties and clarified from the faculties, and the students understanding the resolution of their own doubts. Next comes revision and test practice. To start with, initially chapter wise, then part syllabus, and then full syllabus test practice. And finally comes analysis of the mistakes that the students are making and filling in the gaps, and again revising and elevating the expertise level of the student in that particular chapter or topic. This is the outline of the general academic plan that is the most optimal for each and every learner going forward, and this is the best possible educational and academic service that can be given to a particular student. As always, we wish all of us light speed.